Rain pelted down on James Harper's weathered hands as he gripped the strange metallic device. The blue light pulsed, illuminating his face in the darkness of the barn. He had no idea what it was, but something told him it was worth more than his entire farm. As he turned it over, the back door creaked open, and a woman stepped in, her silhouette framed by lightning. "I believe you have something of mine," she said, her voice calm despite the storm. James didn't know it yet, but this moment would transform his failing farm into something revolutionary, something that would change farming forever. Before we carry on, please hit the subscribe button to make my day, and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. Tomorrow's story will be even more incredible, so you won't want to miss it. The first drop of rain hit James Harper's forehead as he surveyed his withering cornfield. Dark clouds gathered overhead, promising the storm that had been forecast all week, but wouldn't deliver enough water to save his dying crops. At 4 to 5, the lines on his face told the story of 2 decades of struggling to keep the family farm alive, each year more difficult than the last. "Damn it," he muttered, kicking at the dry, cracked soil. The drought had stretched on for months, and the irrigation system he could barely afford was no match for Mother Nature's cruelty. The bank's final notice had arrived yesterday, giving him 30 days to make good on his loan payments or face foreclosure. James ran a calloused hand through his salt-tan pepper hair. What would his father say if he could see the Harper family legacy crumbling? 5 generations of farmers, and he would be the one to lose it all. The wind picked up, bending the stunted corn stalks. James turned to head back to the farmhouse when something caught his eye. A splash of color against the dirt path leading to the woods that bordered his property. Walking closer, he realized it was a backpack, a high-tech-looking thing, made of what appeared to be waterproof material in sleek black with electric blue accents. "Hello?" he called out, looking around. "Anyone there?" Only the wind answered, rustling through the failing crops. James approached the backpack cautiously. It hadn't been there this morning when he'd walked the fields at dawn, assessing the damage from another waterless night. Someone must have been hiking through his property, perhaps using the old trail that cut through his land and led to Ridgeline Creek. He picked up the backpack. It was surprisingly heavy, and something inside made a soft mechanical hum that he felt rather than heard. Curiosity overcame his usual respect for others' property, and he unzipped the main compartment. What he found inside made him gasp. The backpack contained what looked like several pieces of advanced technology gadgets he couldn't begin to identify. A sleek tablet unlike any he'd seen in the electronics section of the town's general store. Small metallic devices with blinking lights. A cylindrical object that emitted a soft blue glow. And what appeared to be a high-end laptop, but thinner than seemed possible. "What in the world?" James whispered, lifting out the glowing cylindrical object. As he turned it in his hands, tiny sensors on its surface lit up in response to his touch. A few drops of rain began to fall, snapping James out of his daze. Whoever owned this equipment wouldn't want it getting wet. He quickly zipped the backpack closed and hurried toward his farmhouse as the sky opened up above him. Inside his kitchen, James placed the backpack on the worn wooden table and stared at it. Should he call Sheriff Dalton? The lost and found at the ranger station by Ridgeline Creek? Or maybe he should wait to see if someone came looking for it? The rain intensified, drumming against the roof of the century-old farmhouse. It would be a downpour soon, but not the sustained rainfall his crops desperately needed. Just enough to tease and then disappear, leaving the ground barely moistened. James made himself a cup of coffee and continued to study the backpack. He couldn't resist another peek inside, carefully removing the tablet. It was locked, its screen displaying only a request for a fingerprint. No help there for identifying the owner. He put it back and pulled out a small leather wallet tucked in an inside pocket. No driver's license or credit cards, just a key card with a company logo he didn't recognize, Quantum Horizon Technologies, and the name A. Chen printed beneath it. A. Chen, James said aloud, as if the name might ring a bell. It didn't. His ancient desktop computer sat in the small office off the kitchen. It took nearly 5 minutes to boot up, and the internet connection when it worked was painfully slow. But today, luck was with him, and he was able to search for quantum horizon technologies. The results made his eyes widen. Quantum Horizon was at the cutting edge of technological innovation, developing everything from artificial intelligence systems to advanced agricultural technology. Their CEO, Alexander Chen, was described as a visionary in multiple fields. There was her photo on the screen, a woman in her mid-30s with intelligent eyes, her dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail. She didn't look like the typical tech CEO in their designer clothes and carefully crafted image. There was something unpretentious about her, despite her impressive resume. MIT graduate, multiple patents, Forbes 30 under 30 in her 20s. No way, James muttered. Could this backpack belong to Alexandra Chen herself? What would the CEO of a major tech company be doing wandering around his failing farm? The phone rang, startling him. It was his daughter, Lily, calling from her college dorm. "Hey, Dad," she said, her voice tight with the concern she tried to hide whenever they spoke. "How are things?" "Same as always," he replied, not wanting to worry her. Lily was the first Harper to go to college instead of immediately taking up farming, and he wanted to keep it that way. She was studying agricultural science with a focus on sustainable farming techniques, her way of helping the family legacy while forging her own path. "The storm reach you yet?" she asked. "Just starting. Won't help much, though. I've been reading about some new irrigation techniques," Lily began, her voice taking on the enthusiastic tone it always did when she talked about her studies. "There's this system that uses moisture sensors to deliver precise amounts of water, exactly where it's needed. Reduces water usage by 60% while improving yield." James smiled sadly. "Sounds amazing, honey. Also sounds expensive." "There are grants, Dad. I've been looking into—" "Let's talk about something else," he interrupted gently. "How are your classes going?" They chatted for a few more minutes before saying goodbye. James stared at the phone after hanging up, his heart heavy. Lily had such hopes for the future of farming, such enthusiasm for innovation. He hated that his struggles might be teaching her that passion wasn't enough in the face of climate change, rising costs, and corporate competition. The backpack sat on the table, a reminder of a world of technology and progress that seemed galaxies away from his failing farm. James sighed and decided to wait until morning. If no one came looking for the backpack, he'd call the sheriff. As night fell, the storm intensified. James sat on his porch, watching lightning split the sky and listening to thunder rumble across the hills. In the morning, he'd find puddles and mud, but not the sustained moisture the soil truly needed. He was about to head to bed when headlights appeared on his long driveway. At nearly 11 at night, visitors were unexpected. The sleek vehicle that emerged from the darkness was even more surprising, a luxury electric car that looked out of place on his rural property. James walked down the porch steps as the car parked and its door opened. A woman stepped out, dressed in practical hiking clothes that were now thoroughly soaked. Even in the dim porch light, he recognized her from the photos online. Alexandra Chen looked at him with an expression of tentative hope. "Excuse me," she called over the sound of the rain. "I'm looking for something I lost earlier today. A backpack? Black with blue trim?" James nodded. "Found it by the trail. It's inside, safe and dry." Relief washed over her face. "Thank goodness. Those prototypes are irreplaceable." "Prototypes?" James echoed as he gestured for her to come up to the porch and out of the rain. "I'm Alexandra Chen," she said, extending her hand once she'd climbed the steps. Up close, she looked exhausted but determined. "Most people call me Alex." "James Harper," he replied, shaking her hand. "Most people just call me Harper." "Thank you for finding my backpack, Mr. Harper." "Just Harper is fine." And it was sitting right there on the path. Hard to miss. He opened the door and let her inside. "Coffee? You look like you could use something warm." "That would be wonderful, thank you." In the bright light of the kitchen, James could see that Alexandra Chen's clothes weren't just wet. They were covered in mud at the knees and elbows, as if she'd fallen several times. She noticed his gaze and gave a self-cane, deprecating smile. "I'm not exactly outdoorsy," she admitted. I was trying to reach Ridgeline Creek to test some water quality sensors when the rain started. I slipped down an embankment, and by the time I climbed back up, I couldn't find my backpack. James set the coffee pot to brew and retrieved the backpack from the table. It's all there, though I did look inside to try to figure out who it belonged to. Hope you don't mind. Alex took the backpack with visible relief, quickly unzipping it to check its contents. Everything's here. Thank you for keeping it safe. She pulled out the cylindrical device that had caught James's attention earlier. This alone represents 6 months of development work. What is it? James couldn't help asking. Alex hesitated, then seemed to make a decision. It's an atmospheric water generator, but miniaturized and much more efficient than anything currently on the market. It extracts moisture from the air and condenses it into drinking water. James raised his eyebrows, impressed despite himself. Sounds useful in a drought. That's the idea. Alex accepted the mug of coffee he offered her. I needed real-world testing conditions. Laboratory results are promising, but that doesn't always translate to practical applications. James nodded toward the window, where rain lashed against the glass. Well, he picked a hell of a day for it. That drew a laugh from her. Not my finest moment in field research, I admit. She took a sip of coffee and sighed appreciatively. This is good. One thing we do right around here. James sat across from her at the table. So, Quantum Horizon Technologies. You're a long way from Silicon Valley. We're based in Boston, actually. But yes, this is definitely off the beaten path for us. She steadied him over the rim of her mug. This is your farm? Harper Family Farm. 5th generation. Pride crept into his voice despite his current troubles. And what do you grow here? Corn, primarily. Some soybeans. Used to have a decent vegetable operation too, but the droughts made that impossible without better irrigation than I can afford. Alex nodded thoughtfully. How many acres? 200 total. About 150 in cultivation, or trying to be. James wasn't sure why he was sharing these details with a stranger, let alone a tech CEO who probably couldn't tell corn from soybeans. But something about Alex Chen invited confidence. The drought's been hard on you, she observed. It wasn't a question. James gave a short laugh. That's one way to put it. 3 bad years in a row. This one's the worst yet. Alex set down her mug and reached into her backpack again. Would you mind if I showed you something? A prototype I've been working on personally? Curiosity piqued. James nodded. She pulled out the tablet he'd noticed earlier and pressed her thumb to the screen to unlock it. After a few swipes and taps, she turned it so he could see a 3D model rotating on the burr. Display. This is an integrated precision agriculture system, she explained. It combines soil moisture sensors, automated irrigation delivery, atmospheric water generation, and predictive analytics to optimize water usage and crop yield. James leaned closer, his interest genuine. It looked like a more advanced version of the system Lily had mentioned on the phone. The sensors monitor soil conditions in real time, Alex continued, her voice taking on an animated quality. The system then delivers exactly the right amount of water, exactly where it's needed, when it's needed. During drought conditions, the atmospheric water generators supplement groundwater sources. And how much would something like this cost to implement? James asked, already knowing he couldn't afford it. Alex hesitated. It's still in development. We don't have a market price yet. Ballpark it for me. For 200 acres? Alex did some mental calculations. The full system would probably retail around $150,000 once it's in production. James whistled. That's when I figured. Well beyond what a small family farm can manage. Yes, but that's why we're working on financing models too. Subscriptions, cooperative purchasing for groups of small farms, grants for implementing water-conserving technology. She looked up from the tablet, meeting his eyes directly. The technology isn't just for large agribusiness. That's actually counter to our mission. And what is your mission, exactly? James couldn't keep the skepticism from his voice. To democratize advanced agricultural technology. To make sustainable farming accessible to operations of all sizes. She spoke with conviction that seemed genuine. The climate crisis is only going to make water management more critical. Small farms can adapt with the right tools, but they need to be affordable tools. The rain continued to drum on the roof as James considered her words. They aligned with Lily's passionate beliefs about the future of farming. But decades of watching big companies make promises to small farmers had left him wary. "Sounds nice on paper," he finally said. "But I've heard similar pitches before." Alex didn't seem offended. Skepticism is reasonable. Actions matter more than words. She took another sip of coffee. "Mr. Harper, would you be willing to consider something unusual?" "I'm listening." "Quantum Horizon needs a test site for our agricultural systems. Somewhere with real-world challenges, where we can refine the technology under actual farming conditions." She set down her mug. "Your farm would be ideal." James stared at her. "You want to use my farm as a testing ground?" "We would install the system at our cost," Alex said quickly. "You would provide feedback on its performance, help us identify problems, suggest improvements. In exchange, you get to use cutting-edge technology that might save your farm, and we get invaluable field data." It sounded too good to be true. "What's the catch?" "We would need access to install and monitor the equipment. Some of your time for regular feedback sessions. And there's the reality that this is experimental technology. I can't guarantee it will work perfectly." James thought about the bank notice sitting on his desk. About Lily's hopes for the farm's future. About his dwindling options. "I'd need to think about it," he said finally. "Of course." Alex reached into her backpack and pulled out a business card. "Take all the time you need. Call me when you've decided." She finished her coffee and stood. "Thank you again for finding my backpack. And for the coffee." "You're welcome to stay until the storm passes," James offered, glancing at the window where rain continued to pour. "I have a hotel room in town," she assured him. "My car can handle the roads." James walked her to the door. As she was about to step out onto the porch, Alex turned back. "Harper," she said, "regardless of what you decide about the test site, I'd like to send you something. A small version of the atmospheric water generator. No strings attached. Just to thank you for finding my backpack and keeping it safe." Before James could respond, she was gone, dashing through the rain to her car. He watched the taillights disappear down the driveway, then looked down at the business card in his hand. Alexandra Chen, Ph.D., CEO, Quantum Horizon Technologies, and beneath that, a handwritten cell phone number. James slept poorly that night, his mind racing with possibilities. By morning, the rain had stopped, leaving behind puddles that would evaporate all too quickly in the summer heat. He walked his fields as the sun rose, assessing the meager benefits of the overnight precipitation. The corn stood slightly taller, momentarily relieved, but far from saved. Another week without substantial rain, and he'd be right back where he started. As he circled back toward the house, James spotted a delivery truck coming up his driveway. The driver waved as he approached. "Delivery for James Harper." The man called, consulting his tablet. "Requires signature." James signed for the package, a large, sturdy crate that took both of them to unload from the truck. Once the delivery man had departed, James pried open the crate to find the atmospheric water generator Alex had mentioned, along with a simple instruction manual. A note was attached. "No strings attached. As promised. Just set it up near your garden. It generates about 10 gallons per day in current conditions. Not enough for your fields, but might save your vegetables. AC." The device was elegant in its simplicity, requiring only to be plugged in and switched on. James set it up near his struggling vegetable garden as suggested, watching in amazement as water began to collect in the attached reservoir within an hour. For 3 days, James observed the water generator's performance. It consistently produced the promised 10 gallons daily, enough to keep his small vegetable garden alive without drawing from his well. The technology worked exactly as Alex had claimed. On the 4th day, he called the number on her card. "Alexandra Chen," she answered crisply. "It's Harper," he said. "I've been thinking about your proposal. And? I'm interested, but I need more details before I commit. I can send you a full proposal document, Alex offered. "I'd prefer to discuss it in person," James countered. "See exactly what you have in mind." "I can be there tomorrow," she said without hesitation. "Would afternoon work for you?" They agreed on a time, and James spent the evening thinking about questions to ask. By morning, he had a list that filled a legal pad. This wasn't a decision to be taken lightly. Alex arrived precisely at the agreed time, her electric car now accompanied by a small transport van bearing the Quantum Horizon logo. She wasn't alone. A young man with an eager expression and a tablet followed her up the porch steps. "Harper, this is Daniel Park, one of our agricultural technology specialists," Alex introduced them. "I thought it would be helpful to have him explain some of the technical aspects of the system." Daniel shook James's hand with enthusiasm. "It's an honor to meet you, Mr. Harper. I grew up on a small farm in California before it was lost to drought. What we're developing could have saved my family's operation." James found himself warming to the young man immediately. There was an authenticity to his passion that resonated. They sat at the kitchen table, where Alex and Daniel laid out detailed plans for the system they proposed to install. The technology was even more impressive than James had initially understood. Not just water management, but soil health monitoring, pest detection, and yield prediction. "The core of the system is the network of sensors," Daniel explained, pulling up diagrams on his tablet. "They communicate with a central hub that makes decisions about resource allocation based on real-time conditions and predictive modeling." "And who owns the data?" James asked, having heard stories of tech companies collecting farm data and using it in ways farmers never intended. "You do," Alex said firmly. "We request access to anonymized performance metrics for system improvement, but all data about your specific operation belongs to you. That's in the contract, in black and white." They continued discussing details for over 2 hours. James's questions were met with straightforward answers, and when Alex or Daniel didn't know something, they admitted it rather than making promises they couldn't keep. The installation would take about 3 weeks, Alex explained as they walked the property later, assessing optimal placement for sensors and irrigation lines. "We'd work around your schedule, disrupt operations as little as possible." James stopped at the edge of his cornfield, looking out over rows of struggling plants. "And realistically, what can I expect in terms of results? This season is already compromised." Daniel stepped forward. "Honestly, this season will see some improvement, but not a miracle. The real benefits will come next growing season when the system is fully calibrated to your specific conditions." James appreciated the honesty. "And the cost to me is my time and allowing your team access?" "Yes," Alex confirmed. "Plus permission to use anonymized data and, if the results are positive, potentially your testimonial for future farmers considering the system." "I'll want my daughter involved," James decided. "She's studying agricultural science. This aligns with her interests." "We'd welcome her input," Alex said, genuine enthusiasm in her voice. "Actually, we offer internships that might interest her." James looked at her sharply. "This isn't about recruiting my daughter." "Not at all," Alex assured him. "But if she's studying agricultural science with an interest in technology, we'd be foolish not to consider her expertise valuable. The offer stands whether you agree to the test site or not." The sun was beginning to set when they finished their tour of the property. James had made his decision hours ago, but wanted to be thorough in his understanding before committing. "I'll do it," he said finally, as they returned to the farmhouse. "When can you start?" Alex's face lit up with a genuine smile. "We can begin preliminary surveying tomorrow if that works for you. The full installation team would arrive next week." They shook hands, and James felt, for the first time in years, a flicker of hope for the future of Harper Family Farm. The transformation began immediately. By the end of the first week, Quantum Horizon's team had mapped every inch of James's farm, installed weather stations, and begun placing soil sensors throughout the fields. The second week brought irrigation system upgrades and the installation of several larger versions of the atmospheric water generator Alex had first sent. James found himself increasingly impressed with the operation. The team worked efficiently and respectfully, always explaining what they were doing and why. Alex was often present, overseeing critical installations and frequently asking James for his input on placement and priorities. "We want to focus first on saving what's possible of this season's crops," she explained as they reviewed plans for the third week. "Then prepare for optimal conditions for next season." Lily came home for a weekend to see the installation in progress and was immediately captivated. James watched with pride as she engaged the engineers in detailed discussions about soil moisture optimization and cover crop strategies. "Dad, this is incredible," she told him, eyes shining with excitement. "The technology they're implementing is years ahead of what we're studying in class." "Figured you'd approve," he said with a smile. "Alex offered me an internship next summer," Lily added, her expression a mix of excitement and uncertainty. "Would you be okay with that? I know you were hoping I'd come back to work the farm after graduation." James placed a hand on her shoulder. "The farm will always be here for you if you want it. But I want you to follow your own path, not mine." By the end of the third week, the system was operational. James stood with Alex and Daniel in the newly established control center, a corner of his barn converted into a high-tech monitoring station with screens displaying real-time data from throughout the farm. "Watch this," Daniel said, pulling up a slow moisture map of the cornfield. "You can see exactly where water is needed and how much." The display showed variations in soil moisture depicted in a gradient from blue to red. With a few taps, Daniel activated a targeted irrigation sequence that delivered precise amounts of water only to the areas showing red on the map. "We're using 60% less water than conventional irrigation," he explained proudly. "And it's going exactly where it's needed, when it's needed." "The atmospheric water generators are supplementing your well," Alex added, showing another screen that tracked water collection. "They're producing about 200 gallons per day collectively, which helps reduce groundwater depletion." James studied the monitors with a mixture of awe and cautious optimism. "It's impressive technology. The question is, will it save my crops?" "Let's find out," Alex said, leading them out to the fields. The difference was already visible in some areas. Plants that had been on the verge of failure were showing new growth. The vegetable garden, benefiting from the first small water generator, was thriving despite the continuing drought. "The sensors indicate improved soil health in the areas where we've had the system running longest," Daniel noted, consulting his tablet. "Moisture retention is up 20%. Over the next month, James watched in amazement as his farm began to recover. The corn wouldn't produce a bumper crop this year, but it would survive something that had seemed impossible before Alex's arrival. The system worked tirelessly, optimizing every drop of water, monitoring conditions day and night, and making adjustments without human intervention. Alex visited weekly to check on progress and collect feedback. Her genuine interest in the farm's success became increasingly apparent to James. This wasn't just a business venture for her. She genuinely cared about creating technology that could help farmers like him survive. During one of her visits, as they walked the improving fields, James finally asked the question that had been on his mind since the beginning. "Why are you doing this, Alex? What made agricultural technology a priority for Quantum Horizon?" Alex was quiet for a moment, watching a drone fly overhead, scanning crops for signs of pest damage. "My grandparents were rice farmers in China," she finally said. "They lost everything to drought when my mother was a child. It forced them to emigrate with nothing." She bent down to examine a corn stalk, running her fingers over its strengthening leaves. "My mother became a scientist because she believed technology could have saved their farm. She instilled that belief in me." Standing, she met James's gaze directly. "When I founded Quantum Horizon, everyone expected me to focus on consumer technology or military applications. That's where the easy money is. But I wanted to solve real problems, not create more gadgets. No one really needs." James nodded, understanding all too well the pull of family legacy and purpose beyond profit. "The other test sites aren't doing as well as yours," Alex confessed as they continued walking. "We're learning that the human element matters more than we anticipated. Your experience, your willingness to collaborate with the technology rather than resist it's making a significant difference in outcomes." "Farming's always been a partnership," James replied. "With the land, with the weather, with the plants themselves. This is just adding another partner to the dance." Alex smiled at the metaphor. I like that perspective. By harvest time, the results were clear. While not a record-breaking yield, James's farm produced a viable crop despite the drought conditions that had devastated many neighboring farms. The system had proven its worth. News of the Saklo. Innovative technology being tested at Harper Family Farm spread through the agricultural community. James found himself hosting tours for curious farmers, explaining how the system worked and the results he'd seen. Alex often joined these tours, using James's practical experience to complement her technical explanations. We're not looking to replace farmers with technology, she emphasized during one such tour. We're looking to give farmers better tools to do what they already know how to do, feed the world sustainably. As fall turned to winter, Quantum Horizon began using data collected from James's farm to refine their systems. The company installed weather stations on several neighboring properties to gather more comprehensive climate data, paying those farmers for access and information. James spent the winter studying the soil health reports generated by the system, planning for spring planting with a precision that had never before been possible. Lily came home for winter break and dove into the data as well, offering insights from her studies that complemented his practical knowledge. We should consider diversifying, she suggested one evening as they reviewed field performance metrics. The system can support multiple crop types with different water needs by managing them independently. James nodded, impressed with her thinking. What did you have in mind? These sections here, Lily indicated areas on the digital map, would be perfect for drought-resistant wheat varieties. And this quarter near the creek could support higher-value crops like berries that we could sell directly to consumers. The conversation continued late into the night, father and daughter reimagining the future of their family farm together. When spring arrived, James implemented many of Lily's suggestions. The system, now fully calibrated to his specific conditions, performed even better than expected. Soil moisture was maintained at optimal levels despite rainfall remaining below average. The atmospheric water generators provided supplementary irrigation during dry periods, reducing dependency on well water. Alex's visits became less frequent as the system proved its reliability, but she remained personally involved in the project. During one visit in late spring, she brought news. The data from your farm has helped us secure additional funding, she announced as they watched a drone monitor emerging crops. We're ready to expand the program to 20 more farms across 3 states. That's fantastic, James said sincerely. We want you to be part of it, Alex continued. As a consultant, your practical insights have been invaluable in refining the system. James raised his eyebrows. A consultant? I'm just a farmer, Alex. You're a farmer with a unique perspective on how our technology integrates with real-world agriculture, she countered. We need that perspective as we scale. The position would involve occasional travel to new installation sites, meeting with farmers, sharing your experience. Paid, of course. The opportunity was unexpected, but intriguing. I'd have to think about it. The farm needs me, especially during growing season. The position would be flexible. And with the system handling much of the monitoring and adjustment, you have more freedom than before. Alex smiled. Just consider it. You've already helped us improve the technology significantly. Other farmers could benefit from your experience. By summer, James had accepted the consultant role, finding that the automated systems indeed gave him more flexibility than traditional farming had ever allowed. The Harper family farm was thriving under the new BRE integrated approach, producing higher yields with less water and fewer inputs than ever before. More surprisingly, James found himself enjoying the consultant work, traveling to other farms, helping fellow farmers understand and adapt to the new technology, gave him a sense of purpose beyond his own operation. His practical knowledge complemented Quantum Horizon's technical expertise in ways that made the technology more accessible and effective for farmers of all backgrounds. Lily took on management of the farm during his absences, applying her academic knowledge alongside the traditional farming techniques James had taught her. Their partnership became a model that Quantum Horizon highlighted in their approach to other farming families entering traditional knowledge while embracing innovation. 1 year after finding Alex's backpack on his property, James stood in a cornfield that bore little resemblance to the struggling operation of the previous summer. Tall, healthy stalks stretched toward the sun, their leaves a vibrant green despite rainfall remaining below historical averages. Alex joined him, both of them surveying the success of their collaboration. "Did you ever imagine this when you found my backpack?" she asked. James shook his head. "Not even close. I thought I was going to lose this place. And now? Now I'm thinking about what we plant next year. About how Lily wants to add a research plot to test new crop varieties. About the workshop we're hosting next month for regional farmers." He turned to face her. "I'm thinking about the future, not just surviving to the next harvest." Alex nodded, satisfaction evident in her expression. That was always the goal. Not just better technology, but technology that creates possibilities rather than limitations. As they walked back toward the farmhouse, James reflected on how a simple act finding and returning a lost backpack had transformed not just his farm, but his entire perspective on farming's future. The partnership between his generational knowledge and Alex's technological innovation had created something neither could have achieved alone. "You know," James said, pausing at the edge of the field, "my father would have called all this fancy gadgetry. He believed in doing things the old way, the hard way." Alex studied his face. And what would he think now, seeing the results? James smiled, looking out over the thriving crops. He was stubborn, but he wasn't foolish. If something worked, really worked, he'd eventually come around. He chuckled. Might take him a season or two of grumbling, but he'd come around. "Sounds like a wise man," Alex said. He was. "Taught me everything I know about this land." James gestured toward the farmhouse. "Come on, I've got something to show you." Inside, James retrieved a dusty photo album from a bookshelf. He opened it to reveal black and white photographs of the farm dating back to the early 1900s. "See, this is my great-grandfather," he explained, pointing to a stern-faced man standing beside a horse-drawn plow. "Started with 40 acres and built it up over time." Alex leaned closer, genuinely interested. The landscape looked so different. Different crops, different methods. James turned the page. "Here's my grandfather introducing the first tractor to the farm. My great-grandfather thought it was unnecessary, an expensive toy. Within 5 years, they had 3. Technology adoption isn't new to farming," Alex observed. "Never has been. We just forget that." James continued through the album, showing the farm's evolution across generations. "Every generation faces its challenges and finds its solutions. My father dealt with the farm crisis in the 1980s. Nearly lost everything but adapted and survived. And your challenge is climate change," Alex said quietly. James nodded. "Among other things, corporate competition, rising costs, aging infrastructure." He closed the album. "But also new opportunities, if we're smart enough to recognize them." Later that evening, as the sun set over his thriving fields, James sat on his porch with Alex, sharing a bottle of local wine. "I've been thinking about expanding the program," Alex said, swirling the wine in her glass. "Not just drought management, but comprehensive climate resilience systems." "What does that look like?" James asked. "Integration with renewable energy. Solar panels that serve dual purposes, generating electricity while providing partial shade for sensitive crops during extreme heat events." Her eyes lit up with enthusiasm. "Carbon sequestration incentives. Biodiversity support systems. Sounds ambitious." "It is," she admitted. "But climate change isn't waiting for us to be ready. Farmers are on the front lines." James nodded thoughtfully. "I've been thinking about something too. All these farmers coming to see the system, they ask good questions, but many of them can't envision how it would work on their specific operations. That's always the challenge with new technology, the conceptual leap. What if we created a demonstration hub here? Not just tours, but hands-on training. Let farmers operate the system themselves, see the data processing in real time, understand the decision-making." James leaned forward, warming to his idea. "A sort of agricultural technology immersion program." Alex's expression brightened. "An education center for sustainable agricultural technology. I love it." Quantum Horizon could provide the equipment and technical expertise, and Harper Family Farm provides the real-world context and practical knowledge. James finished. Lily could help develop the curriculum. She's already talking about how to make the technical aspects more accessible to traditional farmers. The company has an educational outreach budget that's barely being utilized, Alex said, already making mental calculations. We could start small, maybe weekend workshops, and expand based on interest. James gazed out at his fields, now bathed in the golden light of sunset. The conversation continued late into the evening, two innovators from different worlds finding common ground in their vision for agriculture's future. 3 months later, the Harper Agricultural Innovation Center welcomed its first group of participants, 15 farmers from across the region, varying in age, experience, and operation size. James and Lily, along with Daniel and a team from Quantum Horizon, led the 3-day immersion program. The goal isn't to make you tech experts, James explained to the group gathered in the converted barn that now served as a classroom. It's to demystify the technology so you can make informed decisions about whether and how it might work for your operations. The farmers, initially skeptical, became increasingly engaged as they moved between classroom sessions and hands-on field experiences. By the final day, many were already discussing how they might implement elements of the system on their own farms. This isn't just about survival, one older farmer commented during the closing session. It's about farming better, being better stewards of the land while still making a living. That's something I can get behind. The program's success led to a waiting list for future sessions and inquiries from agricultural extension offices about partnerships. What had begun as a personal transformation for James was becoming a movement within the regional farming community. Winter arrived, bringing new challenges and opportunities. James received a call from Alex one snowy evening. "I've been invited to speak at the National Sustainable Agriculture Conference," she told him. "They want a session on technology integration for small and medium-sized farms." "That's great," James replied. "I'd like you to co-present with me," Alex continued. "Your perspective would add credibility and practical insight that I can't provide alone." James hesitated. "I'm not much for public speaking, Alex." "Neither was I, once upon a time," she assured him. "But no one can tell this story better than the two of us together. Think about it?" He did think about it, discussing the opportunity with Lily over dinner the following evening. "You should absolutely do it, Dad," she encouraged him. "The work we're doing here matters, but it only reaches its full potential when others adopt it too." "When did you get so wise?" he asked with a smile. Lily grinned. "Must be those Harper genes." James agreed to co-present with Alex, and they spent the next few weeks preparing their presentation via video calls. The conference was in Chicago, requiring James to travel further from the farm than he had in years. Standing backstage before their session, James felt his heart racing. The conference hall was filled with hundreds of farmers, researchers, policymakers, and industry representatives. "Nervous?" Alex asked, adjusting her microphone. "Terrified," James admitted. "Just talk to them like you talk to the farmers who visit your place," she advised. "This is just a bigger living room." When they took the stage, James forgot his prepared remarks almost immediately. Instead, he spoke from the heart about his journey, from skepticism to innovation, from desperation to hope. "I'm not here to tell you technology is the answer to every problem facing agriculture," he told the audience. "I'm here to tell you that being open to new approaches while honoring traditional knowledge can create solutions we never imagined possible." As he spoke, images of his transformed farm appeared on the screen behind him, side-by-side comparisons of withering fields before the system and thriving crops after. Charts showing reduced water usage and improved soil health. Photos of farmers gathered at the Innovation Center. The audience response was overwhelming. After the formal presentation, James and Alex found themselves surrounded by attendees eager to learn more, share their own experiences, and explore potential collaborations. "Congressman Jenkins would like to meet you both," a staff member informed them, leading them to a distinguished older man with a firm handshake. "Remarkable work you're doing," the congressman said. "I sit on the Agricultural Committee, and we're currently discussing funding allocations for climate resilience programs. Would you be willing to testify at our upcoming hearings?" James looked at Alex, who nodded encouragingly. "I'd be honored, sir," James replied. Small farms need a voice in those discussions. That evening, as they celebrated the presentation's success over dinner, Alex raised her glass in a toast. "To unexpected partnerships," she said. "And the future of farming." James clinked his glass against hers. "To finding lost backpacks." Alex laughed. "You know, I've never told you the whole story about that day." "What do you mean?" "It wasn't entirely an accident that I was testing prototypes on your property." She looked slightly embarrassed. "We'd been researching potential test sites for months. Your farm fit our criteria perfectly: right size, diverse terrain, experienced farmer, documented climate challenges." James raised an eyebrow. "So, you trespassed intentionally?" "I had permission to use the public trail," Alex clarified quickly. "But, yes, I was hoping to observe your operation firsthand before making any approach. Then the rain started. I slipped down that embankment and, well," she shrugged, "the rest you know." "So you're saying losing the backpack wasn't part of your master plan?" "Definitely not. That was genuine panic you saw that night." She smiled. "But it worked out better than any planned introduction could have." James shook his head, amused rather than annoyed by the revelation. Life has a way of creating its own opportunities. The congressional testimony led to increased national attention for both Harper Family Farm and Quantum Horizon Technologies. James found himself becoming an unexpected advocate for technological innovation in small-scale agriculture, while Alex gained credibility in agricultural circles that had previously viewed tech-weight companies with suspicion. The following spring, 2 years after finding the backpack, James implemented the farm's most ambitious planting plan yet. With Louie's input and the system's capabilities fully leveraged, they diversified into specialty crops alongside traditional row farming, created habitat corridors for beneficial insects, and established a test plot for extremely drought-resistant grain varieties being developed by university researchers. "The system is enabling us to try things that would have been too risky before," Lily explained to a group of agricultural science students visiting the farm. "If something fails, it fails small and with minimal resource waste. When something succeeds, we can scale it up with confidence." The Harper Agricultural Innovation Center continued to expand its programs, now offering specialized workshops for beginning farmers, technical training for agricultural extension agents, and customized consulting for farms transitioning to climate-smart practices. One evening, as James reviewed the day's system data in the control center, he noticed Alex's car coming up the driveway. Her visits had become less frequent, as the system proved increasingly self-sufficient, so her unannounced arrival piqued his curiosity. "This is a pleasant surprise," he said as she entered. Alex looked simultaneously excited and nervous. "I have news, and I wanted to share it in person." "Good news, I hope." Quantum Horizon has received a major grant to expand our agricultural systems to 100 farms across 10 states over the next 3 years. She beamed. "It's a partnership with the Department of Agriculture, 3 major universities, and a consortium of environmental organizations." "Alex, that's fantastic," James exclaimed. "There's more." She took a deep breath. "We want to establish regional innovation hubs modeled after what you've created here. Each hub would serve as a training center and demonstration site for farms in its area." James nodded, impressed. "Sounds like a logical evolution." "I want you to head the program," Alex said directly. "As Quantum Horizon's Director of Agricultural Implementation." James stared at her. "That's quite a title. It comes with quite a responsibility," she acknowledged. "Overseeing the hub development, ensuring the technology meets the specific needs of each region, hiring and training staff who understand both the technology and the farming contexts where it will be deployed." "You're offering me a job," James said, still processing the idea. "I'm offering you a partnership," Alex corrected. "Your experience over these past 2 years, both with the technology itself and with helping other farmers understand and adopt it, is invaluable. This program needs someone who has lived the transformation, not just theorized about it." What about the farm? James asked. I can't just abandon it. The position would be structured around the agricultural calendar, Alex assured him. And Lily has mentioned she's interested in taking on more management responsibility while continuing her studies. James walked to the window, looking out over the land his family had farmed for generations. I never imagined doing anything but farming this land, he said quietly. You would still be farming it, Alex pointed out. But you'd also be helping hundreds of other family farms survive and thrive, expanding your legacy beyond these acres. The prospect was both daunting and exhilarating. I'll need to think about it. Talk to Lily. Of course, Alex said. Take all the time you need. That evening, James and Lily sat on the porch swing, discussing the opportunity as the sun set over their thriving fields. You should take it, Dad, Lily said without hesitation. You've found your calling in this work. My calling has always been farming, James replied. And what is farming but feeding people and caring for the land? Lily asked. This would just expand how you do both. James looked at his daughter, seeing in her face the determination and wisdom that had characterized the Harper family for generations. You ready to take over more of the farm management? I am, she said confidently. I've learned from the best, and I have some ideas of my own to implement. Care to share? I've been researching perennial grain crops, Lily said, her eyes lighting up with enthusiasm. They require less annual soil disturbance, sequester more carbon, and can be more resilient to climate fluctuations. The system would allow us to trial them alongside our conventional crops with minimal risk. James nodded, impressed by her vision. Sounds like the farm would be in good hands. The best hands, Lily agreed with a grin. Besides, you'd just be a phone call away when I need your expertise. The decision, once made, felt right to James. He accepted Alex's offer, and the transition began immediately. The farm became the flagship of the new network of innovation hubs, with Lily managing daily operations while pursuing her advanced degree part-time. James found himself traveling extensively, working with farmers across different regions and climate zones to adapt the technology to their specific needs. The work was challenging but deeply satisfying, combining his practical farming knowledge with his newfound appreciation for innovation. During one trip to California, James visited a small family vineyard, implementing the system to combat increasingly severe drought conditions. Before this technology, we were ready to sell, the vineyard owner told him, as they walked among grapevines equipped with the precision irrigation system. 3 generations of winemaking, about to end because we simply couldn't get enough water. And now? James asked. The owner gestured to the thriving vines. Now we're not just surviving, we're producing better grapes with less water than ever before. The quality of our wine has actually improved because we can stress the vines precisely the right amount at precisely the right time. Stories like this reinforced James's belief in the importance of his new role. He wasn't just helping implement technology, he was helping preserve agricultural heritage and knowledge that might otherwise be lost to climate change and economic pressures. 3 years after finding Alex's backpack, James stood on a stage at a major agricultural technology conference, preparing to deliver the keynote address. In the audience sat hundreds of farmers, researchers, technology developers, and policymakers. Among them were Alex, Lily, and Daniel, along with many farmers who had participated in the Harper Innovation Center programs. When people ask me how I went from being a struggling farmer to standing here today, James began. I tell them it started with curiosity, the curiosity to look more closely at something unexpected I found on my farm, the curiosity to consider that technology could complement, rather than replace, generational farming knowledge. He shared the story of finding the backpack, of his initial skepticism, and of the transformation that followed, not just of his farm, but of his perspective. The future of agriculture isn't about choosing between tradition and innovation, he continued. It's about thoughtful integration, about recognizing that the wisdom of experience and the possibilities of technology are most powerful when they work in concert. James described the network of innovation hubs now operating across the country, each adapting the core technology to regional conditions and needs. He highlighted success stories from diverse operations, from small organic vegetable farms to large cattle ranches, from vineyards to orchards. What unites these varied operations is a willingness to evolve, he said, to hold fast to their core values and purposes while embracing new tools and approaches. As he concluded his address, James reflected on the unlikely journey that had brought him to this moment. From the brink of losing his family's legacy to helping shape the future of farming. From isolation on his struggling farm to connection with a nationwide community of agricultural innovators. The applause that followed his speech washed over him like a wave. As he stepped down from the stage, Alex was the first to greet him. "Not bad for someone who claims not to be much for public speaking," she teased. "I had good material to work with," he replied. Later that evening, at a celebration dinner with the core team from Quantum Horizon and representatives from the innovation hubs, Alex presented James with a gift, a small, elegant shadow box containing the business card she had given him the night they met, and a USB drive. "What's this?" James asked, examining the display. "The card you already know," Alex said. "The drive contains the original design files for the first atmospheric water generator I sent you, the one that started everything." James was touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "Thank you. I'll treasure this." "We've come a long way from that stormy night," Alex observed. "We have," James agreed. "And we still have a long way to go." The following day, James returned to Harper Family Farm, where Lily was implementing her latest innovation, a community-supported agriculture program that utilized the farm's new diverse crop system to provide weekly produce boxes to local families. "The first distribution went well," she reported, as they walked through fields where perennial grains now grew alongside more traditional crops. "We sold out all 50 shares, and there's a waiting list for next season." "I'm not surprised," James said proudly. "The quality of what you're growing here is exceptional." "How is the conference?" Lily asked. "Inspiring," James replied. 10 new innovation hubs will be established next year. The program's expanding faster than even Alex anticipated. They continued their walk, discussing future plans for both the farm and the innovation network. As they crested a small hill that overlooked the property, James paused to take in the view. The farm looked vibrant and healthy, a patchwork of diverse crops and conservation areas. Solar panels gleamed on the barn roof, powering the atmospheric water generators that supplemented irrigation during dry periods. Sensors throughout the fields collected data that would inform decisions and refine processes. Yet for all the technology now integrated into the operation, the essence of the farm remained unchanged. The connection to the land, the commitment to stewardship, the continuation of family legacy in new forms. "You know," James said to Lily, "your grandfather used to stand right here when he needed to think. Said you could see the whole world from this spot if you looked with the right eyes." Lily smiled. "What do you see when you look with the right eyes?" James considered the question, gazing out over the land his family had farmed for generations, and that would now continue under his daughter's innovative guidance. "I see the past and the future existing together," he answered finally. "I see traditions honored through evolution rather than rigid preservation. I see a legacy not just surviving, but growing." As they stood together on the hilltop, James realized that the most valuable crop he had ever cultivated wasn't corn or soybeans or any of the innovative new plantings now thriving on Harper Family Farm. It was possibility, the seeds of which had been planted the day he found a lost backpack on a dirt path during a drought. That evening, as the sun set over his thriving fields, James sat on his porch with a renewed sense of purpose. The Harper Family Farm wouldn't just survive, it would help lead the way toward sustainable agriculture for generations to come. All because he'd noticed a splash of color against the dirt path on a drought-stricken day, and stopped to see what it was. Sometimes, he thought, the most revolutionary changes begin with the smallest moments of curiosity.